Welcome to Illustrator. I hope by now you have the software and you're updated and ready to go. So we're going to jump right into chapter 1, which is pretty simple, just getting to know the work area. It's much like Photoshop and other Adobe products, but we're going to basically take a little quick tour here. Hopefully in an earlier step you've already downloaded all of the book files. I have a zip file for you, or there is a link in your book on how to go get the files. So if you don't already have them, you are going to need specific files for this. So let's start by having Illustrator opened and launched, and this screen may look a little different for you. You may have some imagery on here, learning videos. But your welcome screen is always going to have your most recent files and some options to start a new file quickly. So on the left we also see cloud documents, create new, and open. So the first thing we're going to do is open a file. So we can either go through this or we can do a file open just like you do in lots of other software, including the Microsoft family. And we are then going to navigate to wherever you saved your book files. So for me, I have them on the desktop, and I have a folder on desktop called Illustrator 2020 Book Files. In here you see they have it divided by lesson, and I want you to go to lesson 1 and open the start number 1 file, and it should look like that. Keep it real with a boat and some flowers. All right, from here we're going to take a quick tour. First thing we want to do is make sure what workspace we are in, and you can see it listed up here at the top right where it says Essentials. If you click on the drop down, you will see some different workspaces, and just like other Adobe products, all that does is change the toolbox. All the tools don't change, but the panels that are automatically loaded over here on the right are more specific to the task that you are doing. So in typography, you would certainly see all of your text, your character, your line spacing, all of those options would show up. So make sure you're in Essentials. I'm going to just hit the Reset Essentials button. And another way of finding that is under the Window drop-down, and here's Workspace and all of your own, all of those same options, and a way to customize your own with a new workspace. The next thing we want to do, depending on what size your image is or how it's centered, is we want to fit this artboard, and that's what this is called. It's just a work area for us, artboard number 1. We want to fit it in the entire window. So under the View menu, we can see some of our viewing options. Zoom in, zoom out, Command plus, Command minus, we'll use those a lot. And remember, if you're on a PC, when you hover over these, you're going to see PC shortcuts. And Command is the same as Control on a PC. So every time I say Command, if you're working on a PC, just know that that's the Control button for you. Fit artboard in window, Command 0. This is the one that we want to work with first. Fit everything in the window. So if we had 5 artboards, it would be Option Command 0 or Alt Control 0 on a PC. And then another one that's pretty common is Actual Size or 100%, and that is Command 1 or Control 1. So let's start with Fit Artboard in the window as our first step. So your artboard contains the area of what will print, everything that you're working on. Excuse me. So from here we can see that if, let's just say, this leaf was half off of the artboard, the half that's over here in this gray area would not print. So everything within this artboard is your actual print area. All right, let's look at our workspace here. The first thing that we'll see is our application bar. This is this top bar up here where we have close, minimize, maximize, home, and then some different arrangements. On a PC, this is actually going to be found in line with this top main menu. So you're going to see all of these things, and then you'll see the home, the organize, arrange windows, and then at the far right is where you'll have close, minimize, and maximize. So it's just a little bit different. On the right, we see some of our panels. Right now we have a Properties tab, a Layers tab, and a Libraries tab currently activated. And the panels are going to help us modify and monitor our work. I'm going to go back to the Properties panel there. We can rearrange those, and we'll see that in just a moment. We also have our toolbar that's over here on the left. And again, it's a long single toolbar, or depending on the resolution of the screen that you're working on, it may look like this. It may be 2 columns. You can change that by clicking on these double arrows to make it a single column or a side-by-side column toolbar. Exactly the same information, one just might be easier to use. All right, we also have our document window. That's this main part right here where our document is located. And then we do have a status bar in our lower left corner down here. So this is telling us that right now our current magnification of this document is 26.42%. In this drop down, we have a lot of options. So we can zoom in all the way to 64,000% or as far out as 3%. Fit on the screen is going to make your document fit the view of your screen, which may or may not be 100% to size. If your screen is small, it's going to make it smaller. If you have a huge screen, it might not be the same. So if you want to see this at 400%, that's how you would accomplish that. And you can see everything is crisp and clear. And the reason for that is that Illustrator is where we work with vector graphics, vector shapes, vector objects. They're made up of lines and curves that are designed by mathematical points. So you can see this is a curve right here, and I'm just going to select it. Oh, that's grouped. That's not going to work. We'll get to it in a second. The beauty of Illustrator and of vector graphics is that we can resize them infinitely smaller and infinitely larger and not lose any quality. And the reason is because it's a dot to dot. This is not a certain amount of pixels lit up this color on your screen. This is a dot right here, and at the end of it is another dot, and just like a dot to dot, there's a straight line connecting the two. So we can stretch that to any size and not lose any quality and resolution as we enlarge it or shrink it. Unlike Photoshop, which uses bitmap images or raster images that are just pixels. So if we zoomed in on a photo to 10,000% in Photoshop, all we would see is a bunch of squares lit up a certain color because that's what pixels are. It would look very jagged and horrible. Illustrator is unique, and this makes it perfect for artwork, logos, designs that need to be scalable. If you make a logo for a client, they might want to use it on their business card, or they might want to use it on the side of a semi-truck. It needs to be very scalable, and that's what Illustrator is great for. So let's go back to 100% and notice, are we seeing everything? We're very zoomed in. So let's do a fit the artboard on the screen. And again, I'm going to always talk about shortcuts and want you to use them. But if you need to find them under View, Fit Artboard in Window, this is where you can be reminded. So Command 0 is Fit Artboard in the window, which is really important. All right. That is the workspace in general. So let's look at our toolbar now, which is over here on the left. And you could, if you wanted to, undock this and move it around and have it be a floating panel. You may have a reason for that, but I think most people are really comfortable and expect their toolbar to be on the left, and that's where they want to find it. So they usually keep it over there. The double arrow, again, will make it wide or shrink it down. If for some reason you would push this X button and close it and then say, oh man, what did I do? I can't get back where I want to go. There's a couple of things you can do, and this is just a good tip for if your workspace is misbehaving or looks odd or you lost something. You can always go up to the workspace, either here or through the window workspace, and do a reset, and that's going to bring all your tools back. Or under this window drop down, you can look at all the options, and if it's got a check in front of it, it's turned on. Right now, toolbars There we go, our back. Notice that it did say advanced or basic. Here's the basic toolbar, and here is, oops, I'm in the wrong spot again, sorry, advanced toolbar. The advanced toolbar is going to have more options showing without having to dig for them. And what I mean by that is whenever you see a tool with a little arrow in the right corner, that means that more tools are nested underneath. So in this case, if we wanted the group selection tool, we'd have to come here, and from this flyout menu, we'd have to select it. Nested under the type tool, if we hold on that, we have the area type, type on a path, etc., etc. So this one expands a little bit more and brings some tools that aren't necessarily as often requested or used, and it makes your toolbar a lot longer. We can always get to these. There's 3 dots at the bottom of any toolbar, and when we look at that, it's going to show us what's available to us and what's deselected. And if it's grayed out, it's already on the bar. So you're noticing everything's on the bar right now. So let's go back, and from Window, Toolbars, if you followed along with me and are doing this, let's go back to the basic toolbar. From here, we're going to dock this back over on the edge. And when we see that blue line light up, that's when we can let go, and it will permanently dock back on the left until we rip that tab off again. So in our toolbar, the first tool we're going to look at is our selection tool. This is how we select items and then choose to do things to them. Change their color, change their shape, give them special qualities. So the selection tool, if you hover over the toolbar, the shortcut is the letter V. So if you're working along on your keyboard and your mouse and you know you want the selection tool, it's a lot easier just to hit the letter V. So let me just go to a different tool. Let's say we're working with this tool right now. By pressing the letter V on my keyboard, I automatically pop back to the selection tool. So knowing some of these keyboard shortcuts is very helpful to make your workflow faster and easier. The only tool that does not work with is when you're in the type tool, because when you're in the type tool, if you hit a letter on your keyboard, it assumes that you want to actually type that letter, so it doesn't automatically pick another tool. But if you're in any of these other tools and use a shortcut, you'll get back to the tool. The next tool down is, let's just use the selection tool quickly, this first one, and let's pick this big shape. So you can see the blue outline around this large light green shape. We are selecting the entire shape, and because of that, a bounding box is around the entire shape. So the selection tool selects whole things, whole lily pads. This is a group, we'll get to that in a minute, but it selected the whole group of the knees, the arms, and the 2 hat pieces of this person. So that's selecting whole things. If we switch now to the second tool, which is the direct selection tool, I still had that selected, and now notice how different it looks. I'm just going to zoom in to show you this. Command plus on your keyboard is zoom in. So instead of seeing whole pieces, the direct selection tool allows you to select anchor points. So this is an anchor point on this circle, and I'm just going to select it to show you how that selected that one piece, and I can now manipulate, I can do really strange things, this one piece. So had I selected the hat with the selection tool, I would have had the whole thing and I could have moved it around. But by selecting with the direct selection tool, you are selecting specific anchor points. You can also then manipulate the handles, which changes that curve. So here's the dot to dot that I was telling you about. There are, in this case, 4 anchor points on this circle, or this shape that's now a bit oval, and I can independently change the dot to dot and how they interact, the curve. All right, now that I've done this several times, I want to show you a really awesome thing. Undo. Undo is Command Z, and all I can tell you is that it's going to probably be your best friend. So I'm going to just Command Z until I'm done. I'm back to this point where I'm not manipulating this anymore. This works for any step you take in Adobe Illustrator, Adobe Photoshop, whatever. Command Z backs you up a step. So don't be afraid to try things you can always undo. So again, I'm using the direct selection tool, and because of that, instead of getting this whole shape, I'm able to manipulate specific anchor points instead. So Command Z. All right, let's switch out now, and I'm also going to go back to the whole view. So Command 0 or Control 0, and I'm just going to click away with the selection tool somewhere so that I have nothing selected. I'm going to click over here in the gray. Moving down our toolbar, we're going to go down and take a look at the rectangle tool, which is this top one, letter M. This has a flyout, so click and hold, and you'll see that this is where you can make rectangles, ellipses, polygons, stars, and lines. And we'll learn very soon, what if we want to make a square or a circle? Well, we make a perfect square using the rectangle tool and holding one keyboard shortcut button down. And we can make a perfect circle using the ellipse tool by holding one keyboard key button on the keyboard down. If we wanted to, we could take this tab, this flyout menu, we could take this little arrow and we can click on it and we get a free floating window. So instead of always having to use this flyout, we can use, we can rip off this tab and have all of them present at once. If you're wondering what's going on with this magenta line that's showing up, I have something called Smart Guides and Smart Rules on, and that helps me line things up so you get that when you move around in your artboard. All right, if we click on the double arrow, it goes back, and if we drag it, if we close it out, it's back to just being stacked inside of our toolbar. All right. All right, like I mentioned, if there are tools that you're not seeing anywhere, including being nested where you expect to find them, it's probably because the toolbar is just showing this basic mode and not the advanced. And these three dots down here will show you all options. So now everything that is dimmed out is active on our toolbar, but the magic wand, for example, isn't. And if we wanted that, we would activate it here. All right, I'm going to click away to close that, and we are going to move on to our properties panel.